In today's lecture, we will delve into the crucial topic of carbohydrates, which constitute a fundamental nutrient essential for bodily functions. To reinforce your comprehension of nutrients, let's revisit the classification of nutrients. Nutrients are broadly categorized into macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients required by the body in substantial quantities encompass carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and water. On the other hand, micronutrients are necessitated in smaller amounts and include vitamins and minerals. Carbohydrates are composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen and have general formula that approximates CH2O. Carbohydrates are classified into monosaccharide, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Monosaccharides or simple sugar is actually the smallest units of carbohydrates. It contains 3 to 8 carbon atoms. However, only those with 5 carbons or pentases and 6 carbon or hexases are common. Disaccharides are composed of 2 simple sugars joined together. So, the combination of a monosaccharide with another monosaccharide will create a disaccharide. Polysaccharides are complex carbohydrates containing a minimum of 10 units of various monosaccharide. So it's actually a long chain of monosaccharides. Now, we will discuss each of these types of carbohydrates. The first one is monosaccharide. Monosaccharide can be absorbed by our body without further digestion, so monosaccharide will not be broken down to be able to be utilized by our body. There are plenty of monosaccharides available, but the monosaccharides that have a greater significance in foods and our body metabolism is glucose, fructose, and galactose. As you can see here, these are the chemical structure of glucose, galactose, and fructose. All of them are 6 carbon sugars. Glucose and galactose are actually an aldose because they contain an aldehyde functional group. Aldehydes contain a carbonyl group bonded to at least one hydrogen atom at the end of a carbon chain. Fructose is ketose because it contains a ketone functional group. A ketone is an organic compound in which the carbonyl group is attached to a carbon atom within the carbon chain. Let's talk about glucose. Glucose is also called dextrose or corn sugar. It is naturally abundant in many fruits such as grapes, oranges, and dates, and some vegetables including fresh corn. It's prepared commercially as corn syrup or by special processing of starch. Glucose is the principal product formed by the digestion of disaccharides and polysaccharides. It provides energy for the cells via the bloodstream. Glucose is the only sugar transported through the bloodstream that can nourish all cells in the body. The mammalian brain depends upon glucose as its main source of energy. Fructose, also known as levulose, is found naturally in honey and fruits. It's the relatively sweetest of the monosaccharides. Fructose is a product of the digestion of sucrose. Fructose can be manufactured from glucose. High fructose corn syrup has become a popular component of processed foods, especially soft drinks, because of its lower cost. It's made from cornstarch and is industrially produced by changing some glucose molecules into fructose, making the syrup sweeter than sucrose. Galactose is a product of lactose digestion or milk sugar. Galactose is rarely found free in nature. Physiologically, it is a constituent of nerve tissue and is produced from glucose during lactation. Sugar alcohols or polyols are formed from or converted to sugar. It is formed when the carbonyl group of the monosaccharide is reduced to a hydroxyl group. For example, disorbitol is formed when D-glucose is reduced. Sugar alcohols may appear naturally in foods or be added by a manufacturer. The most common polyols include sorbitol, xylitol, and mannitol. The sugar alcohol play an important role because of their good technological properties, such as their sweetness, ability to absorb moisture from the environment, and their solubility. They also have fewer calories and reduced risks of dental caries. Of the sugar alcohols, sorbitol and mannitol are slowly fermented to acid by oral bacterial, and xylitol is virtually non-fermentable. One of the disadvantages of the sugar alcohol is that they are only partially absorbed in the small intestines and pass to the colon, causing a laxative effect. This effect may induce osmotic diarrhea, caused by the osmotic transfer of water into the gastrointestinal tract. Intake disaccharides cannot be metabolized by the body, but they contribute to body function after digestion. Disaccharides must be broken down into their constituent monosaccharides before they can be absorbed. Sucrose is a combination of one molecule of glucose and one molecule of fructose. The most common form of sucrose is granulated table sugar. Commercially, sucrose is produced from sugarcane or sugar beets. It's also found in syrups, fruits, and vegetables. The sugar found in milk is lactose. Lactose, which contains galactose and glucose, is unique to mammalian milk. Maltose or malt sugar contains two molecules of glucose. Maltose does not occur naturally. It is created in making bread and brewing beer and is present in some processed cereals and baby foods. Just like disaccharides, polysaccharides must be broken down into their constituent monosaccharides before they can be absorbed. Starches is an example of polysaccharide that are composed of many long-chain or branch glucose units. Most food sources of complex carbohydrates are in the form of starch from cereal grains, roots, vegetables, and legumes. The amount of starch present in the vegetable increases with its maturity. For example, corn tastes much sweeter immediately after it's picked than it does several days later because the simple sugar in corn have not developed into starch. In contrast, the amount of starch in fruit decreases as it ripens. That is, complex carbohydrates are broken down during the ripening process into simple sugars. Glycogen is the carbohydrate storage form of energy in humans. Stored in the muscle and liver, glycogen is readily available as a source of glucose and energy. Carbohydrates are frequently consumed in excess of immediate energy needs. Excess glucose is converted to glycogen until the limited glycogen storage capacity is filled. Simultaneously, glucose is converted into fats and stored as adipose tissue. The total amount of glycogen stored is relatively small, only enough to meet energy demands for less than a day. Fiber refers to components of food that can be digested and absorbed by enzymes in the gastrointestinal tract, but have desirable health effects. Dietary fiber includes polysaccharides, lignin, and associated substances in plants, such as whole grains, legumes, vegetables, fruits, seeds, and nuts. This figure shows the breakdown of large starch molecule in digestion. Complex carbohydrates are broken down into dextrin or long glucose chains molecules by the digestive enzymes until the end product, glucose, is absorbed. Carbohydrates have some physiologic roles for our body. Absorbed sugars provide a source of energy for body functions and activity and for heat to maintain body temperature. Glucose is the preferred source of energy for the brain and central nervous system, red blood cells, and lens of the eye. Excessive intake of energy from any source results in converting glucose to fats in a process known as lipogenesis. When carbohydrates are consumed in excess of needs, lipogenesis results in increased fat stores. Monosaccharides are important constituent of many compounds that regulate metabolisms. The liver can use part of the carbon framework from the sugar molecule and part of the protein molecule contributed by the breakdown of an amino acid to produce non-essential amino acids. These are physiologically essential but are not required in the diet. Oxidation of fats requires the presence of some carbohydrates. When fats are metabolized faster than the body can oxidize them, intermediate products called ketone bodies may accumulate. Muscles can use ketones for energy only if adequate amounts of glucose are available. The adequate carbohydrate intakes make sure the utilization of protein to build and repair tissue. Undigestible fibers such as lignin, cellulose, and hemicellulose may be fermented by microflora in the large intestine. Fermentation produces gas and volatile fatty acids. Cell linings of the colon use these fatty acids for energy. Undigestible fiber function as prebiotic by encouraging growth of bacteria that synthesize some of the B-complex vitamins and vitamin K. Dietary and certain functional fibers, particularly those that are poorly fermented, improve fecal bulk and laxation and prevent constipation. Every 1 gram of the carbohydrate provides 4 calories. The acceptable macronutrient distribution range for carbohydrate is limited to no less than 45% to prevent excess fat intake and no more than 65% to ensure required nutrients from protein and fats that also provided essential micronutrients. So, for individual on a 2,000 calories diet, they should consume 225 to 325 grams of carbohydrates each day. It's recommended to consume less than 10% of total calories for the day from added sugars, which will be 11 to 12 teaspoons of added sugars or 200 calories on a 2,000 calories diet. The adequate total fiber intake is 14 grams for 1,000 calories per day. Carbohydrates are furnished by the following food groups: milk, grain, fruits, and vegetables. Sugars are incorporated into many popular foods such as candy, beverages, cakes, and desserts, chewing gum, and ice cream. An excess or deficiency of carbohydrates may lead to disturbance on body metabolism and disorders. Consuming too much carbohydrate that is not followed by physical activity can cause weight gain, overweight, and obesity. This condition may lead to systemic diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Eating high levels of fermentable carbohydrates can also cause dental caries. Eating less carbohydrate than it required may lead to weight loss. Furthermore, carbohydrates are normally accompanied by other nutrients. Starchy foods are especially important for their contribution of protein, minerals, and B vitamins. Therefore, intake deficiency of carbohydrate may cause an insufficient intake of B vitamins, iron, and fibers. It's all for today's lecture. Thank you for your attention.